I'm Rren.
And I'm Frank.
Welcome to another podcast of Rock and Ramble. Hey, make sure you check us out, Spotify, YouTube. Please subscribe.
Any of the socials.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We're going to do Instagram. We're going to do Facebook. We're going to do TikTok. You know, right now we're just coming out on Spotify. We're actually coming out on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you get our Insta page. Make sure you get our Facebook. All the information is going to be there wherever we're going to be at. We want to make this thing kind of, enjoyable for everybody. So make sure you stay tuned as much as you can. If you go to the website, it's being built right now, but it's going to be rock_ramble.com.
And repeat that again, just so they know.
Ramble.com. No spaces, rock_ramble.com. You got it. All right, man. So, hey, today we're talking about kind of a curious subject for me. There's a lot of bands that are out there right now that are playing that, as we talked about before in some of the podcasts, we've talked about bands that have come out of retirement like 25 times.
Right.
Kiss and a couple of different bands.
Or they had their final tours like 3 times in a row or something.
They have, but I want to get back into a point with you about what are some of your favorite bands. Now, we have a couple levels of bands, right? We have bands that would pack an arena.
Right.
That would pack a festival. That would bring out 25, 30,000 fans to come see their show.
Yeah.
And then we have what I believe is my heart and my soul, which was the club and local bands that were out in Hollywood that played all the clubs. And they could fill some great places. They could fill a Galaxy Theater. They could fill a Celebrity.
Sure.
They could fill a place with maybe 2,000-3,000 people with no problem.
Right.
And those are more what I call a club band, right? So we made a list of some different bands that we thought were the top 5 for us. So let's start with the favorite arena bands, as I like to call them.
And these are major label bands.
Major
obviously.
label touring bands.
Right.
Can sell quite a bit of tickets. You're going to sell 25,000 plus.
Right.
You're going to sell any large venue, whether it's going to be the Forum, whether it's going to be Staples. For today, Irvine Meadows back in the day, maybe
Which became Verizon.
Maybe you can play a festival and be the headliner on the festival.
Right.
So, before we start on the top 5, because we decided we're going to do a top 5.
Right.
Before we start, I want to go over a couple honorable mentions that didn't quite make the list, but were super close to the cut. Now, when you're doing 5, there's not a lot.
And by the way,
room.
it's really hard because
super hard.
How many shows have we been to? So to narrow, we were talking about doing this podcast with 5, I'm like, okay, but it's, we got to narrow it down based on what we personally feel were performances tied to albums that came out at that time, right?
I've listened to a lot of podcasts that have done a lot about the albums, and there are some great albums that have come out, but I didn't want to just kind of corner a band because they had one great album and then they had maybe 10 bad ones and the other band had 10 good ones. These are the actual band that were our favorite bands in the time. Now, remember, some of these bands that we're going to talk about now are bands that were back then in the day were the big, we love these bands, and they might not be relevant today or not even playing, or they could not even sound like they did.
Or they could be freaking still kicking ass.
Correct.
Yeah.
So coming from myself, and I'll start off just a little bit, just so I have an honorable mention, but just outside of that honorable mention, I put a few bands for the honorable mention, but I wanted to give some face to a couple different things. One of the guys that didn't make it might be surprising is Ozzy Osbourne. And it is surprising, and Ozzy always did a great show. There were some bands I really liked better. I would rather go to the show. They were the music that I liked a little more than Ozzy. Ozzy was phenomenal, had a lot of great guitar players through all the years. Obviously Jakey Lee, Randy Rhoads, Zakk Wylde.
So you're not putting Ozzy in your top 5?
He's not in my top 5. Nor is he
in
he's just kind of outside the honorable mention a little bit even.
Okay.
But like Brad Gillis even played from Night Ranger with him. The other one I'm going to go with for, just outside would be Def Leppard. Def Leppard, their lineup was the same lineup. It didn't change very much.
Very consistent. That's a tough one too, because I had them on the cusp of my 5.
And that's kind of where we're at right here.
Yeah.
So they have the drummer Rick Allen.
Right.
Lost his arm. And when he lost his arm, they kept the band together waiting for him to come back.
Yeah.
Right. And then the other part we had remember Steve Clark passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So Vivian came in, and Vivian's been with the band for many years, who was obviously with Dio.
Talking about a resilient band, though. Seriously. Everybody knows that what they've gone through, that's a heck of a resilient band right there.
And the first edition was Phil, who actually I know Phil relatively well. And he actually took over for Pete Willis in about 1982, 1983. He came from a band called Girl, and he came in Def Leppard.
I remember that.
He started on Pyromania, first album. It was a great album. Anyway, I just wanted to give those couple quick shout-outs to those bands that didn't quite make it. Still, in my heart, there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of bands that are out there. I've only got a top 5 for the top bands, and I did a quick top 5 of honorable mentions, but I just wanted to note those 2 because they're not in any of my things at all.
And I'll tell you, this is an interesting topic because everybody has their own top 5s, right? So, obviously the audience out there is going to be, what? You didn't include them in the top 5? I'm sure that's going to happen. But, it's based on our personal experiences too. So
I could just tell you if you want to have your own top 5,
we're going to go through.
You just got to have your own podcast.
Yeah, right. You might as well have your own, right?
You have a podcast together. We'll listen to your top 5. But make sure in the comments, though, down below.
Tell us, though. Yeah.
If you don't believe what we're talking about, please put comments.
Call us out on it. Why not?
I can tell you there's a lot of bands. Maybe we didn't even think of the band. Maybe it's something that we missed. But we went through and combed pretty thoroughly, trying to find what I thought was the best bands and the best top arena bands.
I'm really interested to hear your top 5.
Right.
Wait, hold on. We got to cheers real quick.
We're going to cheers.
Sorry, guys. You guys see this, but with part of our little crew here thing is cheers, and so.
Do you have anybody outside? We have honorable mention. We have top 5. Do you have anybody outside of that, or no? You're good with just the honorable mention.
Well, my honorable mentions are old schoolers.
Okay, so let's go right into it. Let's go into the honorable mentions. The bands that you thought were just outside your top 5 didn't quite make it. Maybe a reason why they didn't make it, or a reason why they are still on your list for bands that you love.
Okay, so keep in mind now these are, some of these bands are classics, but these are bands that I saw live. Had just an awesome experience seeing them. So honorable mention for me is the Stones.
Okay.
I had to put them on there because, the show that we saw in '94 at the Rose Bowl when they played with the Chili Peppers, freaking kicked ass, dude. It was a great show.
And they had a great show.
Mick and Keith command the stage. So I had to throw them on there.
And
dude.
still do.
Had to.
At like 90 years old. They still
the guy's pumping out kids still.
He is.
Anyway,
and really quick, just to touch on the Stones a little bit, they played with Guns N' Roses too on that big arena tour.
They did.
The Stones, I didn't put them in probably, and I didn't put some of those bands in because these were a little bit. The Stones started in the '60s. They were relevant in the '80s. They did play with some big bands, like you say, with Chili Peppers and Guns N' Roses. So for me, I get that, and I got a couple that are similar that started a little early too. But I had to I was trying to take as many 80s bands, but like you, I went into a little bit of the 70s too.
Well, and I kind of had to because I would do a disservice to these bands that I saw, regardless of what decade they were in. They put on an amazing performance, an amazing show. So I had to put them at least in an honorable mention.
Of course.
So
of course.
My other one, I'm going to throw it out there, believe it or not, UFO.
I don't disbelieve it.
Dude, Phil Mogg and Pete Way were amazing.
I do
I'm
not
telling
disbelieve
you,
it.
they put on such a great show, and they were co-headlining with the Scorpions at the Pacific Amphitheater. And Phil Mogg, I don't know what age he was at that point. He could have been like late 60s, whatever. He was ripped. He was cut. And Pete Way, as you know, Pete Way was the leader in bassist and establishing the rock and roll bass player as we know today. I mean, Nikki Sixx, Steve Harris, they all built their image around Pete Way.
That's
and so
amazing.
it was really cool to see them live.
In our band, we actually the first band, Asphalt, we actually played Doctor was a cover song.
There you go.
So I mean, it just shows you it's a great band. Like I said, they were a lot of 70s, a little bit in the 80s, but a band that's recognized.
Yeah, and they've been. I mean, obviously Pete's passed now, but I mean they've just been resilient. Another resilient band,
sure, of course.
Through all the shit that they've been through. And by the way, if you get a chance, Pete Way has that book. A Fast Way Out of Here, I think it is, Fast Ride Out of Here. And if you haven't read it, it's a great book, fantastic, because he is the quintessential crazy rock and roll guy, beyond Ozzy, beyond any of the Motley Crue guys. He is the one that was the craziest out of all of them.
Now, do I have to read it?
Well, I mean,
can I do audiobook?
You could do audio.
I love audiobooks.
Yeah,
too.
But you would love it.
It's like
great.
my mom telling a story to me at the night time. I just love it.
It's like a bedtime story.
It really is, dude. It really is.
Okay. Okay, you go next.
Okay, so honorable mentions. You have more, or that's it?
No, those two.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I actually did 5 honorable mentions, and because I just had so many bands I loved, and I'm going to go quickly through them.
Okay.
Some of the bands didn't quite make it, but I loved them. AC/DC.
Got him. I get it.
So AC/DC,
Yeah.
Angus, Malcolm. you can't say that they weren't somewhere next to the top. Great show.
They're right there.
And obviously Brian Johnson coming into the band, after Bon Scott.
Right.
It was a great turning point for them. A band that some might even have on a top list, but I didn't, is Motley Crue. And the reason I didn't personally have them was because Motley Crue, in my personal opinion, I saw them play with a couple different shows, and I watched them play with Faster Pussycat. I watched Faster Pussycat blow them away.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that. So for me, I can't quite put them there, even though they were one of the first albums I ever bought. Shout Out the Devil was one of the first albums that I ever bought was Shout Out the Devil. So because of that, for me, it's, they didn't quite make the cut.
Well, and I'll tell you real quick, and I'm torn because I had them on my best. We'll talk about it in just a sec. But I also had them on my worst.
Okay.
For the various reasons we've already talked about.
Yeah. So as we're talking about some of these bands that we're talking about now, we're going to go through the bands that we felt were the best bands, but we're also going to go through bands that are the worst live bands, and that's going to be another podcast. But that's something that you'll get to soon.
Yeah.
Quick, a couple other ones. Whitesnake.
Yeah. Love them.
Whitesnake almost, but they were super close to the top 5. For me. They were super close.
They got heavily commercialized, I think. Towards the end, when they were just really just pumping out all those commercial ballads and all that kind of stuff.
87, 88 lineup.
Yeah.
Vivian Campbell.
Oh, fantastic.
Adrian Vandenberg. Rudy Sarzo.
Yeah, incredible.
Dude, unbelievable lineup. I mean, one of the best ever. And Coverdale, it was a great lineup.
Yeah.
So that right there was just amazing. When
and their videos, you have to throw that in there too.
Yes, of course, man. When they're all standing on the pillars, that was great.
Tawny Katane on that
Rat
car. Come on.
Rat. So many hits.
Wait, Tawny Katane on that car.
Okay,
Come on.
I'm sorry. Back to the Jaguar. Jaguar. So I put Rat in there.
Yeah. Okay.
So I mean, unfortunately, Robin Crosby died of AIDS.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an unfortunate part. He died early. So the band, unfortunately, was forced to lose a member. But some like Steve Clark and Def Leppard. The last one I had was Aerosmith, and that was a tough one because Aerosmith is a great band.
Yeah, they're another one of those classics that just I don't feel like they really got the notoriety that they should have. Really,
here's my opinion quickly of Aerosmith. They started in 70. They broke up in 79. They reformed in 84.
Yeah.
So remember, they were the Toxic Twins.
Yeah.
Right. So when you have the Toxic Twins and they were doing it, obviously they had the issues. So they finally got back together in 84. And when they got back together, when they reformed and got back in 84, they started doing it in the elevator. Not quite the original Aerosmith for me. So I didn't quite grasp it. Liked it, but didn't grasp it.
Yeah.
I went to go see Aerosmith play with Guns N' Roses at Pacific Amphitheater. Aerosmith even put in a book that's the worst decision they ever made was have Guns N' Roses open for them. And it wasn't even funny. I mean, they really blew them off the stage.
But don't you think, because I think, obviously, especially in the 70s when you had Aerosmith competing with The Who, Zepp, and, all these other bands, great bands out of the 70s, right? They seem to have that longevity and relevance that continued on, right?
They did.
Into the 80s, into the 90s,
and
they kind of reinvented themselves. So I think they deserve a lot of credit for that.
That's why they're the top honorable mention, just outside my top five.
That's
just
fair.
because that.
Right.
Because they are an amazing band.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Tyler's not out there anymore. He can't quite do it because he's having some vocal problems. I understand. But he was at the top of his game even before he went out. Still a great show.
Yeah.
Amazing person to see. If he comes back for whatever reason, pay the money to see it. It's one of those things you have to see before you go.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we can anymore, but yeah, no. I mean,
if he does come back, you
yeah.
never know. He might do one show here or there. It's possible. You can never count somebody out.
It's possible.
We thought that Motley Crue was going to retire. Look what happened.
No.
All right, so top fives. Let's go.
Okay.
Frank, what is your top? Drum roll.
Drum roll,
your
please.
Top 5?
Okay.
What is your 5th favorite band of all time?
So these are these are bands that I've seen live at the top of their career.
Go ahead.
And bands that I just was so impressed with their live performance that and tied to albums that I loved. So I that's kind of the logic behind these decisions, right? So my first one, I got to put in there Scorpions.
Amazing.
Fucking crazy ass live show, right? When they're doing the whole standing on each other in a pyramid, and Klaus is running around the stage, and they just put on such an amazing show. You walk out of there going, you know what, that was worth every penny.
100%.
So they're definitely like
and really
within
quick,
that top five.
To touch on your top five, I've seen the Scorpions recently and still put on a great show.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, dude, Rudolph is a madman.
No,
Runs
absolutely.
around the stage, yoked as shit, and puts on a performance like he's 20.
Yeah.
Right. So for my fifth band is Iron Maiden.
Oh shit.
Here's the thing: we're gonna cross a couple paths.
I know we are gonna cross.
It.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you that for me,
for sure, I agree.
The reason I put them as 5. Here's a couple things. Number one, a couple of the best shows I've ever seen, ever, by far, was Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
They put on an amazing. Dickinson is beyond crazy and beyond a great vocalist. I've seen him recently within the last year or two when they came back out and played at Honda Center. And man, I'm telling you, I came home telling my wife that was one of the best shows I've seen.
Went to that show too. It was awesome.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Not even awesome, unbelievable.
With the plane coming in, and it was
how great
crazy. It was awesome.
And Dickinson joined the band. Remember, Paul Di'Anno started in the band. The band's formed in '78.
Right.
Paul Di'Anno, who we were supposed to open up for one of the shows in my band, he left in '81, and they brought Dickinson in. From then, it's crazy. Really quick story on Dickinson. Whenever he warmed up, do you know how he warmed up for a show?
No.
He would ride his rollerblades in a park, singing the whole set at the top of his lungs.
Really?
That was what he did.
Huh.
To be able to be prepared for the extra energy that he needed, and to be able to breathing and the vocals.
That's
amazing.
really amazing. I did not know that.
Yep. First album, Number of the Beast.
Wow.
What was your number 4?
So number 4, I had, funny enough, Iron Maiden. And by the way, this was during their Fear of the Dark tour.
Okay.
So this was 92. And it was at Irvine Meadows. And who opened for them? Do you remember?
I could not tell you. I couldn't in '85. I couldn't.
Testament.
Yep. Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? And so yeah, that was an awesome show. And that was the first kind of when the whole Eddie and everything and the live performance, the pyro, everything that they were doing was just so impressive, state of the art. And I was like, oh yeah, these Iron Maiden kicks ass for sure.
Yeah, they're a great band, man. And that's why we both have them, 4 and 5. So it makes total sense, right?
Now, what's yours?
My number 4?
Yeah.
Tesla.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they're going to be on your list because
they're on my list too.
Tesla's a great band. So, the thing about Tesla, in my personal opinion, they are so underrated.
Yeah.
They were kind of one of those bands that, they weren't selling tickets like a Motley Crue, but they were selling arenas out. Amazing band. Frank Hannon is
a great guitarist
and so underrated.
Yeah,
so underrated.
And I love Jeff Keith's voice too. I mean, he has that raspiness to his voice.
I've seen a show recently. I just saw it a couple months ago.
Yeah,
and we're planning on possibly going to see him again because they're such an amazing band live.
Well, I told you we saw them on the Monsters of Rock cruise twice,
and they're
freaking awesome. Yeah,
they're unbelievable. Now, last time we saw Jeff Keith, he looked a little
haggard,
a little weathered. Maybe like he was having a little
By the
party.
way, aren't we all looking that way? Cheers
a little party favors
to all us old school rockers out there.
Even with the black eyes and everything, he still sounded like $1 million, man. He sounded like $1 million. All right, so we've already gone through honorable mentions. We've gone through the top. We're in the top 5.
Yeah, we're there.
Right, so this is really breaking down for rock and roll who you felt was the best bands that you listened to, big time bands, arena rock. Shoot me your number 3, Frank.
Yeah.
Shoot me your number 3.
My number 3, and this was tough because they could have been even actually higher, but my number 3 is Metallica. I tell you, when I saw them, and it was in '92 at the Forum, blew me away because it was obviously they were supporting the Black Album, Metallica, right? And all the songs on there, it just was in your face, energetic, amazing. It was one of the freaking best shows I've been to. Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to say, so Metallica didn't make my list. And the reason that they didn't for me was because I think I went with a little more of the hairband style for me. That's really what my life was into. Now,
Yeah.
I saw Metallica many times. I saw them on the Monsters of Rock tour. I saw them in Meadows and Justice for All.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing show. I got so fucked up the first night, so fucked up, that it was the second to last show. They ended in Irvine. And I ended up that night in the hospital because I was so fucked up. To where I came home, I missed half the show because I had to leave in the middle of the show. And my grandmother asked her to buy me a ticket, which, God rest her soul, she bought me a ticket, and I went and saw the final show. And they had the statue up there. And when it was over, the concert was over.
Yeah.
They said justice has been served, and they broke that bitch down.
Yeah.
They blew it apart into pieces. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So great concert. And I thought about that as we were talking about this stuff. And I figured I was hoping you'd have Metallica on because I just didn't have them on there.
Well, and
But
we
a
talked
great
about
band.
too, because obviously you and I both agree that we weren't too into the hardcore,
Sure.
thrash metal and all that stuff. But I think Metallica was right there where they crossed over in both.
They brought heavy thrash
They
in.
did.
And I like Megan. I like a lot of the old bands. It's just they just didn't make my list for my reasons.
Yeah.
And that's why we have our own list.
Yeah.
Right. So my number 3.
And again, for the audience out there, we have our list. You're going to have your list.
course.
It's also what you personally experienced that left such a strong impression on you personally.
and
right?
what's gonna buy the album? What's gonna make you want to listen to that
Exactly.
record? What concerts did you go to? They all play factor into it. These aren't just best show ever.
Right.
It's not just
There's
best
more to
album.
it.
There's
Right,
more
right,
to it.
right.
100%. So my number.
What's yours?
My number 3, and this might shock you,
Okay.
but my number 3 greatest band is Skid Row.
Really?
Skid Row. Dude,
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Skid Row,
that's
but I
okay.
mean, you would put them in your top 5.
I did, and the reason why, a couple reasons.
Okay.
Number 1, the fucking God himself,
Well,
Sebastian
Sebastian,
Bach.
I know. I mean,
Let's talk about God. Okay, so
I mean, freaking, what lady at that time did not freaking love him and want to bone him?
fucking.
I'm just throwing it out there.
I'm with you, but I'm going to tell you, Sebastian. Not only did
The
he
hair.
did he look amazing, but he was opera style.
No,
singing.
his voice was fantastic. I mean,
He reminds
his
me only-
octaves that he can hit with his voice, incredible.
There's only a couple people that he reminds me of. One, Jeff Tate,
Yep.
and Axl, because Axl was actually a choir boy and was actually trained that way. So for me, Sebastian was just. I mean, dude, if you wanted to be a frontman in a band,
Well, he had the whole
there
package, the
wasn't
look,
there wasn't many guys. I
stage
wanted.
performance, the
100%.
voice. Yeah, I could see that. But boy, that's man, you're putting in the top 5.
And here's the thing, though: Sebastian made the band, and unfortunately,
well, that's what caused the breakup of the band too.
Bolin, Sable, they don't want to realize. They might recognize it, but without him, Skid Row's not Skid Row.
Right.
And they don't want to bring him back in the band. I understand they had a lot of differences. I understand that he was kind of a handful. They don't want to bring him back in, but I'm telling you, people would pay. So here's the one thing I will respect about those guys in Skid Row. They're not out for the money grab. And we talked about money grabs, and people are just out for the money, putting things together and doing certain things.
Yeah.
And there's a couple bands that are out there, and I've been listening to some different stuff and reading about certain bands and certain artists that aren't out there just for the money grab. And I respect that more than you could possibly imagine. I just actually heard a podcast the other day about DJ Aspa, and coming from Guns N' Roses, he started with 6 a.m. and Beautiful Creatures, and for me, he said that he doesn't want to do 6 a.m. because at this moment in his career, because he's doing a lot of his own stuff, that he's been fortunate enough to make enough money where he can just enjoy himself.
No, good for
It's
him.
not a money grab. He doesn't need the money. He doesn't want to do it. He doesn't. Maybe if
It's nice to be in that position.
If it worked out correctly for him, he would do it. But I'm not 100% sure that will happen.
Yeah.
So that was my number 3.
I like it. It's different. You
and
threw
once
me off,
again,
but I
and
like it.
That's the thing. We don't want to have the same ones. We want to make sure that we're very different.
Yeah.
And that's what's so awesome about it. So down to our top two. Top two. Frank, give me your second favorite band of all time.
Well, you stole my thunder, Tesla.
Wow.
I knew it was going to come up, right? I mean,
we're going to
honestly,
cross over.
We are. And for me, they're just such a fun rock and roll band that has incredible musicianships, but they have, those songs that are your sing-along songs,
100%, yeah.
Like songs and just all those great songs that they have. It's just, you can't help but be moved and get into the music, So when we saw them, I saw them in 91.
Many times.
Well, many times, but my first time was in 91 when they were supporting the Psychotic Supper Tour.
Great.
And
tour.
that it was a great tour, and they played at Irvine Meadows. You know who opened for them?
Firehouse.
Exactly.
But hey, you want to hear something even funnier?
What?
I promoted that show.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Dude.
Firehouse, Tesla.
Matt Hatter did?
Yeah.
Nice, bro.
So we work with Avalon on that show, and that's cool. I'm glad. I never
again,
thought I was going to bring this up.
How did we not run into each other, bro? How did we not run into each other?
To actually be part of that promotional.
Yeah.
It was probably the best promotional I did through all of Mad Hatter. We did some great shows, but that one was amazing when you're dealing with national acts, I guess you could call
For
them.
sure.
But yes, and I love Tesla ever since. And a quick tidbit before. So Phil, that I know in Def Leppard, actually produced their most recent album. They actually toured with Def Leppard quite a bit. So for that, I give shout outs. Phil did a great job. He actually played Save the Goodness, what it's called. That's the song that Phil played on, and his wife's godmother sang on it. Amazing song. Yes.
Wow.
Amazing.
So
Tesla's my top.
So a little bit of trivia for you and those out there that are actually listening to this podcast.
Are you gonna try?
I'm gonna try to stump you here.
The Trump?
I'm gonna try to stump the Trump right here. What was the original name of Tesla?
Oh, I know this answer too. I know it, but I'm not going to give it to you.
And by the way, they changed the name at their manager's recommendation as they were recording their first album.
I know the answer, but I don't know it off the top of my head. We've had a couple cocktails, and that's what's so beautiful about drinking. So you're going to give it to me. All right,
I'm going to give it to you. It's City Kid.
Yep,
City Kid.
I knew it.
Isn't that crazy?
I know. You know who would know it? Eddie Trunk. He would know that for sure. Shout out to Eddie Trunk.
Eddie Trunk would definitely know that.
Great show, by the way. Bring it back, dude. Really, bring it back.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, give me your number 2.
My number 2 of all time. You've already said it. Scorpion.
Oh yeah, I know. Gosh,
how could you not put the Scorpion?
You have to. And by the way, this order that we're giving, I'm not even sure that I have them in the right order. But anyway, they were my top 5.
I would only say, for me, the top 1 is the only one that I could say for sure is in order. But here's the thing: the Scorpions. If I would have said to you, if you would have asked me this some years back, I probably wouldn't put the Scorpions as number 2. But what's really changed my mind is I saw the Scorpions about 4 or 5 years ago in San Diego. Amazing show. I was lucky enough to take my wife to see the Scorpions. I bought her tickets so we could spend our anniversary and enjoy the show.
Nice.
And it was just us.
Okay.
And we went to the show. Man, they are fucking
Who opened
amazing.
for him on that show?
Ugly Kid Joe.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
dude.
wow.
Ugly
That's
Kid
bringing
Joe.
back a band that I hadn't heard in a
while.
while.
And I told her when we
Wow.
were getting ready, I'm like, I want to see Ugly Kid Joe.
Yeah.
And we got there about halfway through because you know how it goes. We had beautiful dinner.
Yeah.
We went and had drinks and we're
Had some
sitting out front.
cocktails, feeling good.
We're sucking.
That's the
drinks
way to do
down,
it.
dude.
Yeah.
And we walk in buzzed and they're playing. We watched half the set, but they were great.
Yeah.
So Ugly Kid Joe was actually really good. And the Scorpions came on and blew it
Just
away.
killed it. Yeah.
But in the last few years, I've seen the Scorpions at quite a few shows, and I think that's what's really tied me into them because they really are amazing. And it brings me back to shows I saw at Irvine Meadows and other venues. Dude, they just don't disappoint.
No,
they're
just so
incredible.
consistently good.
They really are.
I mean,
amazing.
Talking about a band not only has longevity, but is just consistently awesome. Performs amazingly every freaking time.
We bought tickets to see their concert, and when we bought tickets recently, we were going to Vegas. We had it all set up, and then they had to cancel because obviously they had some issues in the band. They had some injuries and some people that got sick. So, I think it was Mickey. Mickey got sick, and Mickey D, and they had to postpone some shows. So they're supposed to play now in August, and I believe because Klaus has some vocal problems.
He has, he's been struggling a little bit.
So we don't know if we're going to see it again.
But I think he's on the mend. I think he's gotten better. Yeah.
And the unfortunate thing is, I got rid of my tickets because I wanted to see the show, but because it was going to be in August, I was going to be gone on a cruise,
okay.
So I couldn't do it. So, but I mean, for the Scorpions, I mean, let's just be honest. A band, longest tenured lineups, right? After, you obviously have Rudolph. When Michael left the band, which is way back when, and Michael's got a great career, UFO, and obviously one of your top bands.
Yeah, for sure.
Your mentions. And then, so he's doing his own great thing, but you had guys, like obviously they were formed in 1965. So this is way long ago. A lot of people don't know Scorpion started in 65. But their albums didn't hit. And here's what's the weird part. They did so many albums. Obviously, nothing out here that really hit. But in 1979, Animal Magnetism was the first album.
That was right, yeah.
And that was right when it started. They actually didn't really hit until the 80s. So I hit the 80s bands because I hit it correctly. Animal Magnetism was the very first one they did. The second one in 19 was Blackout. Blackout was an amazing album. 82 was Blackout.
I was going to say, 82.
Yeah, 82 was Blackout. 82. So Blackout came in 82, and then obviously Love at First Sting, and once that came out, too, that was it.
So I got another trivia question
here
for
we
you.
go.
Because we talked about doing our little homework here, right?
Yeah.
You gave me an assignment, and
Of
we
course.
did. We
I appreciate
GTS'd
that.
it, right?
I appreciate
Google that shit, by the way, if you don't know what GTS means. I'm going to throw one out for you, okay? Trivia, and also for all the fans out there. What was the only album to reach number one in their home country of Germany? When I read this, I was really fascinated, interested to find out the answer.
I want to say Love Drive, but I'm probably wrong.
I thought the same thing, and we're both wrong.
What was it?
Crazy World.
Was it really?
Yes. I was so shocked when I read that. I'm like, damn, I did not realize that.
Crazy World.
Yeah. That was the only album that went number one in their home country of Germany.
You've got to be kidding me.
Dude, I was shitting when I read that.
Wow.
I'm like, wow, that's nuts. Out of all Love Drive and all those other albums, that's the one that went number one in their home country. But there you go.
Wow.
So GTS.
It just goes to show you. People have differences in opinion of a lot of different things.
Apparently.
All right, so here we go.
Okay.
We're going to show the number one.
Man.
Frank, I want to hear your number one band of all time.
I'm so torn.
Well, you can't be torn because you only got one on the list.
I'm torn between myself because I have such a love-hate relationship with this band, dude. You know who I'm going to say.
And if you say the same thing I'm going to say, we're just going to laugh at it.
No.
Who's your number one band?
Okay.
Your favorite band of all times?
That I've seen live, that I love.
Not just live, but
just
who you love. In general.
In general, Motley Crue, dude.
It's a tough one for me.
It's just so, I have such a love-hate relationship with them because it's the old and the new and just,
So the thing I had, when Vince was in his prime, and I know you got a lot of points to point out, but when Vince was in his prime, trust me, I was dying to be that guy. Amazing looking guy, had the image, one of the best frontman ever. Great bass player, amazing drummer. The band itself was crazy good.
Yeah.
The reason I couldn't put him in was because along the road, in the beginning, they were so unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, they started to peter out a lot more quicker than other bands. And
Absolutely.
They had so many issues, and they've just been through so many different reunion tours. It just burnt me out.
Yeah. Well, and obviously, with, our band, we obviously emulized a lot of the 80s bands, but Motley Crue was one of them, right? For sure.
I couldn't tell.
Right? How obvious is, go Google us and you'll see why, right? Well, and in fact, that was probably one of the reasons why we struggled, because it was, you guys,
I
Motley
just
Crue
want to
look
know,
alike, whatever.
in the band,
so
who had the big penis? Who was Tommy Lee in the band? That's what I want to know.
It's always the bass player, isn't it? Or the drummer?
Well, one of those
Probably
guys
the drummer.
always have it,
It was the drummer.
I got
But no, and the particular show that I'm talking about was the Dr. Feelgood show. That's in support of that album.
That was your
in
favorite
'89.
song, yeah.
I mean, when we saw them, I mean, look, that album sold 6 million copies in the U.S. That's their best-selling album, believe it or not, Dr. Feelgood, and that was a performance and a concert that just blew me away, because we all knew Motley Crue from Shout at the Devil,
I can't
live,
blame you.
and all that kind of stuff. But from earlier on, but that show was just incredible. It was great.
I can't blame you for your number one. There's no way I can blame you for that.
All right,
because they're an amazing band.
Yeah.
But so my
okay, let's go to you.
So my number one Okay, and I'm going to say this.
The suspense is killing us.
There is absolutely zero hate about the band.
Okay.
There's things that have come up in the past, but it's always been a love for this band. I've always loved them from the beginning, and I've loved them for a lot of different reasons, which I will express.
Okay.
But my number one band of all time,
Drum roll.
Guns N' Roses.
Okay. Yeah.
And to some people, it might be a surprise. People that know me, it's no surprise.
I knew you were going to say
So they are
that.
my favorite band.
Yeah.
They've been my favorite band of all times.
I get it.
They songs like Night Train and all those, just amazing band.
That first album, Appetite for Destruction.
So here's the best part.
Unbelievable.
So I will say Axl was a dick for many years. Didn't want to come on stage. Always was late to the show. Nowadays they've turned that around. And I respect him for that. And I thank him for understanding and realizing what the fans really mean to him. But for Guns N' Roses, and here's the thing, what I wrote down for a lot of bands on my iPad as I'm looking at some of my notes that I made, I need no notes for this band. This band I could talk to you for an hour about.
Starting from the local scene in L.A. and the whole thing.
Axl was one of the top singers of all times in Rolling Stone magazine.
Now, did you follow them when early on they were Hollywood Roses and all that stuff? Yeah.
Yes. So I was lucky enough to work with some of the bands back in the day. I know that Tracy Guns was actually the original guitar player in Guns N' Roses. People don't know that. That's how they came up with Guns N' Roses. Okay. They formed the two bands. He was in LA Guns.
Right.
Axl was in Hollywood Rose. They put some shows together and they formed Guns N' Roses. That's how it started. Now, Tracy quit the band because Tracy ended up having car problems and couldn't make it to the gigs and the practices, and finally called Axl on the phone and told him, I'm not making it anymore. I'm not coming to practice. Axl was so pissed off. Unfortunately for Tracy, he ended up not being in the band. Now, Tracy's good with the decision that he made because he doesn't feel anything as far as, he wasn't in the right place at the right time.
Right.
And then Slash came in, obviously, and we know the whole story about Slash and how, CC, and he went to try for Poison. He wasn't pretty enough. We know the whole thing.
Yeah.
But Guns N' Roses, their show, their tour, here's the most amazing part of Guns N' Roses. As amazing as they are, and probably one of the largest bands right now that you could possibly book, will sell at multiple arenas and festivals. Guns N' Roses has 2 fucking albums.
Right.
They have Lies, which is not to me an album, right? They have only 2 albums that are out there, right? And that's basically what all of their Appetite for Destruction.
Well, to me, that's their be-all, end-all for sure.
That is because every song on that album was a hit.
Right.
And because of that, they could tour the world with just one and Use Your Illusion. Now, it's a double album, 1 and 2. We know that. But and a lot of music in there. But with just that, they're still touring and they're still the best band. They haven't put out any records since. They did. Axl put out a one with DJ Asba and by the way, some great musicians he brought in.
Yeah.
DJ is fucking incredible, dude. He would be one of my top guitar players. And I don't know if we're able to do that on the podcast, but he's amazing. So that is my number one band of all times.
Fair enough.
I stick to it. Tell us what you think.
Well, no, I totally understand why you'd pick number one, and
I'm surprised they didn't make your
Guns
list.
N' Roses. Well, so
and not even
I have
mention.
I have
not even
them.
a piece of spit.
I have them, but believe it or not, and that'll be for another podcast. For different reasons, I had them on there as my worst.
Well, let's not talk about it.
But we're not going to go there
talk
yet.
about that.
But
we don't want to give. You're giving the podcast away.
But
what
no. But I knew you were going to pick Guns N' Roses, so I have a little trivia for you, and I'm wondering if you know this about Guns N' Roses.
And here's the thing: I'm a big Guns N' Roses fan. I listen to a lot of stuff. I know a lot of stuff about them, and this is putting me on the spot.
It is
because if I don't get this
right.
Everyone's going to tell me I'm full of shit.
This is,
and we're not pausing. I'm not getting an answer.
No.
We're going to end the podcast on this question.
On this question. All right. And there's might be some hardcore Guns N' Roses and particularly Axl Rose fans out there that might know this, right? But I'm going to throw this out to you. So, Axl Rose modeled his whole stage style and his whole vibe, especially when he came out with those, Welcome to the Jungle videos, off of Appetite for Destruction, all that kind of stuff, off of what local band and what singer of that local band?
You know, here's the thing. This is a little bit of a depth question that I
It's
probably
deep.
wouldn't get
It's
to.
deep. It's deep.
And if I guess this, it's really a kind of a guess because I want to say that it's Michael Monroe.
I would be surprised if many people or
I want to say
anybody would
Michael
get this.
Monroe, but I'm not 100% sure. Is it Hanoi Rocks?
No. So get this, and I was even surprised when I found this
I
out.
could say the Rolling Stones.
It's a local band called Shark Island,
Oh, Shark Island was a great
and
band.
the singer was Richard Black.
Yeah, I know Shark Island well.
And apparently they've been around for a long time. They were humping the scene and all that stuff, but he had a very cool vibe, and Axl loved that vibe ran with that.
And that's awesome because I know a lot about Guns N' Roses, and not to know that. Cheers to you for giving me that question.
You know, you asked me to do some homework.
If you would have brought that to Stump the Trump dude, you would have got him, bro. And the best man at my wedding, one of his favorite bands was Shark Island.
Really?
Yeah. And there's stories about the Shark Island album that we listened to, but that's for another day.
Yeah.
But that is great. That's a great ending to the podcast.
Throw that out there. Have some fun with it.
Thank you guys so much for joining me.
Appreciate
we
y'all.
Really appreciate it. The next, we're going to have some more podcasts of similar stuff. We're going to do some club bands and some worst bands. So just check the podcast out. Please listen, subscribe, and comment. I can't ask you enough to
really appreciate your comments, guys.
Comments is really what we need. Just please help us out if you can. rockandramble.com, Spotify.
Peace out.
YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We'll check you guys out soon. We're out.